Hi, in this video for getting started with your online presence, we're going to talk about website designing and hosting. In our previous video, we talked about, buying the domain name and how your domain, your hosting, and your web design all come together. So in this video, we'll talk about website designing first, and then we'll talk about the hosting part of it. So now that you have your domain name, you want to have a website built. That's usually the next step that you want to take, because your designer will probably suggest to you where to host and how to host it properly. So when you're talking about website design, in general, the majority of the web is using a software called WordPress. Basically, it's open source software, meaning thousands of people working together to build the software. It's free, it's open source, but it does require time and energy and effort to build it for your needs, for your requirements. So that's where the web designer comes in and is using that tool. So WordPress is one tool, Drupal is another one. They're based on one platform that is the same, PHP, Apache, Nginx, right? So don't want to get into that, but they're using the same stack of technology underneath it. There are others that use a different technology, but for the most part, I think for businesses just getting started and who have a very basic requirement of having a website up and having option to add content on a regular basis, WordPress and Drupal will do the job for you. Drupal is probably more advanced, and depending on your requirement, you probably don't need to go that route. WordPress, majority of the time, will do the job for you. So now, why WordPress? Well, it's very popular. I mean, it's pretty robust in terms of features and functionality. There are people who monitor it regularly and they patch it for security and whatnot. So you're getting all of that work and effort done by thousands of people, and you're using that tool for your brand. So it just makes sense. So let's say you've decided your website's going to be built on WordPress. Then you have to decide, where do I want to get it hosted? So again, your web designer is going to help you decide on that, or should help you decide on that. Now, within hosting, there are a couple of different routes that you can go. If you're starting out, you can go with what is called shared hosting, or you can go with a VPS, or virtual private server, meaning you have your own slice of the machine where nobody else can utilize the resources. So with shared hosting, we're talking about, one machine hosting, let's say 100 different websites. And if one of them uses 20% of the resources, then your website is going to be affected. So shared hosting has that drawback where you're using the same resources along with everybody else. So it ends up costing you a little bit less, but then you have that possibility that you might be on a machine that is getting utilized more than others, and then your website ends up being a little bit slower. So that's one option. The other option is the VPS option. And these days, VPS is significantly cheaper than it used to be. So my personal recommendation is you should be on a VPS. It's like $5-10 even, to have your own slice of a computer virtual private server that will have dedicated resources just for your website. Actually, there's another aspect of hosting, and that's called managed hosting. So when you look at the broad spectrum of hosting that is available to you, we're looking at shared hosting, you're looking at VPS, and then you're looking at managed VPS. So VPS is a little bit more technical to manage. So if you're starting out, you probably don't know how to manage servers, right? So what you want is somebody who's going to manage that VPS for you. Managed VPS becomes a little bit more expensive. So you have to take those things into consideration when you're looking at hosting providers. And especially for WordPress, now that there are services that will give you managed WordPress hosting as well. And it's gotten a lot cheaper, but to begin with, you might not need it, or your web designer or your web development person might suggest you like their own solution that might work out for you. With that said, that's pretty much all you really need. The website design, I think for the most part, WordPress will do the job. You do want to have a platform that will allow you to log in and update and add pages. This is very critical if you want to promote and market your business regularly. And I mean regularly. So if you're building 5 pages and your web designer builds the 5 pages for you, and then you're not touching it for another 6 months, well, you're not really going to get any traffic, right? You're not going to rank well on search engines because you only have 5 pages compared to another site that might have 50 pages. So obviously they're going to get a little bit more traffic just because they have more pages. If you can upload images, these are all regular pieces of content that you can add to your website and build up that asset of content that might attract visitors to your website. So that's one aspect of your website that you really need to pay attention to and update content on a regular basis. Usually you want to do that with a blog. We'll end it here for this one. So in our next video, we'll talk about promotions and limited time offers. And how do you do that? How do we connect that portion of it without letting everybody know you have a promotion and you're spending money on that advertising? So in our next video, we'll get into that aspect. All right. See you in the next video. Bye.